Hey everyone, ready to dive into something kind of fascinating. We're going to be tackling how to have a really good conversation.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Not just, surface level chit chat, but
Yeah.
like those talks that really get you thinking and make a connection.
Yeah, like the kind that leaves you feeling energized, not drained.
Exactly. And we're going to be looking at this through the lens of academia because let's be real, the pressure to be perfect
Yeah.
can be a real conversation killer in those circles.
It's funny because we think that being perfect is like what makes us good communicators, but I think we can all think of a time where we felt less connected after someone gave a super polished monologue, you know?
It's so true. Like those conversations end up feeling almost robotic.
Yeah, you don't walk away feeling anything.
And actually, what we found in the research for this deep dive is that it's actually those imperfections,
Yeah.
that willingness to be a little vulnerable that really draws people in.
It's counterintuitive, right? We spend years like crafting arguments and trying to deliver flawless presentations. But the conversations that are most engaging often feel effortless, even a little messy.
So how do we do that? How do we actually become those great conversationalists?
The foundation is actually pretty simple. It's active listening.
Okay.
And I don't mean just hearing the words. I mean like really absorbing what the other person is saying. Their body language, their tone.
Like you're really trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly, even the emotions under the surface.
There's this quote from one of the sources that really stuck with me. He says, good conversations require a give and take, just like keeping a ball in the air during a game of catch.
That's such a good
If
analogy.
you're not paying attention, you're going to drop the ball.
And it's so true in academia. Imagine a classroom where professors were as focused on really listening to their students as they are on giving those structured lectures.
Whoa, that would be a game changer.
Right. Instead of that traditional like sage on the stage dynamic, you'd have this like true exchange of ideas, a real collaborative experience.
But how do we break free from that pressure to be perfect,
Yeah.
especially in a high-stakes environment like academia?
Well, I think it starts by recognizing that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's a strength.
Okay.
It's about being authentic, about being willing to say, I don't know, or I'm still learning.
And I think that authenticity makes people way more approachable.
It does. It makes you seem more human. And when you think about it, those are the qualities that we look for in mentors and colleagues, right?
Absolutely. So we've talked about listening and embracing vulnerability, but what about asking the right questions? I know our sources really emphasize that as a key skill for great conversationalists.
It's not about memorizing some perfect list of questions, though. It's about being genuinely curious
Okay.
and asking open-ended questions that encourage the other person to share more, to kind of dive deeper into their thoughts.
So instead of saying, how was your day?
Yeah.
Which usually gets you a one-word answer.
Right.
You could say, what was the most interesting thing you worked on today?
Exactly. Or even better, what's something you learned today that surprised you?
Ooh, I like that one.
Those kinds of questions spark way more interesting discussions.
And it applies to academia too. Think about how we approach research papers or presentations. Instead of just like summarizing the findings, we can dig deeper.
Absolutely. Ask things like, what problem were they trying to solve? Or did they find any unexpected results?
Those questions make the whole conversation way more engaging.
Exactly. And it encourages that intellectual curiosity, which is so essential in academia.
This is already making me rethink how I have conversations.
Yeah.
I'm realizing that it's not about having all the answers or trying to deliver some flawless performance. It's
Yeah.
about being present and curious and willing to learn from other people.
And that's something we can all strive for no matter what field we're in or how much we think we know. You got it. It's a continual process.
So are you ready to ditch the script and embrace a more authentic and engaging way of communicating?
Oh, I am for sure.
We'll explore some more practical strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. It's funny, we haven't really talked about how this all like connects back to the academic job market.
Oh, that's a good point.
You can be brilliant, but if you can't communicate it well, it's going to be tough to like get your work out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And it's especially important when you're trying to get funding or land that dream job.
exactly. And it all goes back to ditching the script and embracing a more authentic way of communicating.
I'm just picturing like a job interview.
Right. Imagine walking in not with a rehearsed speech,
Yeah.
but with like genuine curiosity about the position, the department, the people you'd be working with.
And asking thoughtful questions that show you really get the field.
Yes. And that you're passionate about your research.
I bet that would make you stand out from everyone else who's just reciting their CV.
For sure. And there are platforms like academic.jobs.com that are designed to connect academics with institutions that value these qualities.
Oh, cool.
Collaboration, communication, that real excitement for learning.
So it's about finding the right fit.
Absolutely. Not just for your research, but for your communication style, too.
Okay, so we've covered active listening, being vulnerable, asking good questions. What else makes a great conversationalist?
Well, one thing people often forget is nonverbal communication.
Oh, yeah, like body language and stuff.
Exactly. Our tone of voice, our eye contact, they all send messages.
It's so true. I've totally been in conversations where someone's body language is screaming, I'm bored, even if they're nodding along.
And that can be just as bad as someone interrupting you all the time.
Right.
The key is to be aware of those cues, both in yourself and the other person.
Okay, how do we do that?
Like if someone seems disengaged, maybe try asking a more direct question,
Oh, interesting.
or even acknowledge that they seem checked out.
That seems kind of awkward, though.
It might feel weird at first, but it can actually lead to a more honest and productive conversation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's all about creating space for genuine connection.
Exactly. Even if it means pushing past our comfort zones a bit.
I think our sources also talked about the importance of, like, bringing something to the table,
Yeah.
being informed and having interesting things to share.
Yeah, but that can be tough in academia where there's so much pressure to be the expert.
You always have to have the most brilliant insights.
It's a balance for sure, but the goal isn't to dominate the conversation or show off how much you know.
Okay.
It's about sharing insights that can actually add to the discussion and spark new ideas.
So it's more like being a curator of cool ideas.
Yes,
Yeah.
someone who can connect different fields and experiences and make them relevant to the conversation.
That makes me think about those interdisciplinary research projects that are getting so popular.
Oh, definitely.
I bet the most successful ones are where everyone's not just an expert in their own field, but also great at communicating with people from other disciplines.
Absolutely. And even if you're not working on a specific project like that, you can still benefit from that approach.
How so?
What if instead of sticking to our own little departments, we made more of an effort to connect with people in other fields?
That's a really cool idea.
Go to their talks or read their work. It's like cross-training for your brain.
And who knows what amazing discoveries could come from those connections.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless. But it all starts with those conversational skills, being willing to step outside our comfort zones and engage with the world in a more open and curious way.
This is seriously making me rethink how I talk to people. Not just in academia, but in my whole life.
I love that.
It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, engaged, and actually interested in what other people have to say.
And that authenticity can be contagious.
Oh, for sure.
When we model that behavior, it gives other people permission to do the same.
It's like this ripple effect, creating a more collaborative and intellectually stimulating community.
Exactly.
And in the end, isn't that what we all want? To be part of something bigger than ourselves, to contribute to something meaningful.
You nailed it. That sense of purpose, of belonging, it's incredibly motivating.
So are we ready to ditch the pressure to be perfect and embrace the messy but amazing world of real conversation?
I am 100%, and I bet our listeners are too.
Let's wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts on how to apply all of this to our everyday lives. Okay, so we've spent all this time talking about how to have better conversations, by focusing on being real and connecting with people instead of trying to be perfect. What's like the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from this whole thing?
That's a good question. We always talk about communication as like getting information across, right? Like making sure people understand our point.
Right.
But what if we thought about it more as like creating a space for real connection?
Yeah.
Where we can be open and vulnerable and really try to understand each other.
Wow, I love that. That totally takes the pressure off of having to have all the answers right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It lets us come to conversations with curiosity and an open mind.
It makes me think of those like really intense faculty meetings or conferences where everyone's trying to sound super smart.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
What if we all just tried to be a little more human, a little more real?
What if we focused on asking questions instead of giving our opinions all the time?
Yeah.
Or what if we admitted when we don't know something or when we're still learning?
I bet those conversations would be so much more interesting.
They would.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we'd even stumble upon some cool new ideas or collaborations.
And like you said before, finding the right environment can make a huge difference.
It really can. If you're surrounded by people who value authenticity and open communication, it makes it so much easier to be yourself.
So it's not just about changing how we communicate as individuals. It's about creating a whole culture that supports that.
Exactly. And that starts with each of us. Every conversation we have is a chance to practice these skills, to let go of that need to be perfect, and connect with people in a more real and meaningful way.
Okay, so next time I'm feeling that pressure to be perfect, whether it's in a class, a job interview, or even just chatting with a coworker, I'm going to take a deep breath and remind myself that it's okay to not have it all figured out.
I love that.
It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to just be myself.
And you know what? The best conversations are usually the ones that surprise us,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
the ones that challenge how we think about things and leave us with even more questions.
Well, this deep dive has definitely been a reminder that amazing conversations aren't about performance, they're about connection.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone, and we hope you'll take all of this and use it to have more awesome conversations in your own lives.